everybody just stares at me, and most people don't like me because I'm trans and punk, and nobody wants to be around me. I need someone in my life who will just spend 10 minutes to give me a hug. Ever! God damn. I am so, I can't do this. I can't do this.
In a world where mental illness is heavily stigmatized, especially in online spaces, having someone that gives a voice to the voiceless is a miracle that many could only wish for. In such a world, someone that knows your struggle and is bold enough to be loud for everyone else, whose voice speaks reassurance straight into your soul in the midst of the rough storms of stigma and discrimination, easily becomes a superhero of some sort. But what happens when this loud voice becomes a little too loud, and you find out that behind every video with the calm voice hid a bitter alcoholic with an abusive personality? Your superhero begins to look like what they really are, a supervillain. Well, this is the story of Lexity, an online personality who masked her animosity within carefully crafted videos with the sweetest words. Through the course of this video, we'll look at how she manipulated people and still cunningly demanded sympathy from her followers. Lexity is a content creator that identifies as omnigender. While she feels like a woman most times, she also does feel like a man. Before the allegations and controversy, Lexity, known offline as Anastasia Alexandria Athena Lennon, was carving out a digital space where raw emotion and personal expression were central.
Hey sweetheart, I have a couple things to say. First of all, empathizing with someone you've hurt means feeling the way you made them feel, so you should be upset, and you should feel sad when you're apologizing to someone for hurting them. Also, an unsolicited apology means about 1,000,000 times more than an apology someone has to ask for. So if you really want to make amends, you should make the first move and take responsibility. Hope that helps.
Her platforms of choice were TikTok and Instagram, where she amassed over 430,000 followers. On these apps, she isn't just another influencer. She presented herself as a deeply sensitive artist, a trans woman navigating trauma, identity, and vulnerability in full view of the public. Her followers, who she affectionately calls her sweet peas,
Hey sweet pea, hey sweet pea, hey sweet,
gravitated toward her instantly, with some followers saying things like, "Every time this creator shows up on my FYP, I just instantly blush. You need to be an alarm clock. Waking up to, hey sweet pea, time to get up and have a wonderful day. I had to restart the video because the lack of sweet pea threw me." Much of Lexity's early content centered around her music and poetry. On TikTok, she would perform spoken word pieces or soft monologues.
Silence, she sings to me, a cacophony of cavernous vacuity. And with my hands black and dead, I pick up what remains, and I hold those pieces once again. But still, silence stays the same. A wave never knows where the water goes, and yet pushed and pulled, it soon is shown all that it will need to know. Yes, a wave never knows where the water goes, but it will find its way to the sea.
Whether through a verse, a selfie, or a stream of consciousness post, Lexity cultivated an image of someone broken yet beautiful, misunderstood yet deeply in tune with others who had been hurt. Her music was another piece of this artistic persona. Though not professionally produced, it was deeply personal.
I feel like crying all the time, but when I see your face, I see from my ego.
Apart from being a self-produced artiste, she's also good with musical instruments like the keyboard, the flute, the guitar, and she has a talent for beatboxing. Even when her words or vocals weren't polished, fans praised her for being vulnerable and real. To them, she wasn't just creating content, she was letting them into her soul. When Lexity started off on the social media space with her music and poetry art forms, she eventually pivoted into fun fact content. In these videos, she explained facts to her followers in very simple terms that were easy to understand.
Hey sweet pea, So something's poisonous if you putting it in your mouth will harm you, and it's venomous if it putting you in its mouth will harm you. Not exactly, but most animals do use their teeth or mandibles to get the venom into your bloodstream. Hey, lovely. Just so you know, Rome wasn't like a good thing. It was a violent, expansionist, militaristic empire, or republic, or triarchy, depending on which time in history.
Lexity was more than just an online figure. To many of her followers, she was magnetic. She had a soft appearance with piercing eyes, bold makeup, and carefully curated outfits that gave her a distinct visual identity. But her allure wasn't only about how she looked. It was in how she spoke, how she listened, and how she made others feel seen.
Hey, sweet pea, have you been good? Because I feel like praising you. Does that sound wonderful? You strong, amazing individual. It's so wonderful for me to see you grow into the beautiful human being I knew you always could.
When she validated your experiences, it felt like healing.
Hello there, my gorgeous thing. You are absolutely divine, simply beyond belief. I promise you, there's never going to be another one like you, and you deserve to be someone.
She knew how to echo someone's hurt, mirror their insecurities, and reflect it all back as something worthy of love, and that was what drew people in. Lexity's blend of personal trauma, artistic expression, and identity content created a powerful connection with her audience. She positioned herself as someone who had suffered and was now using her voice to speak out, heal others, and fight injustice. But this also made the eventual fallout more complex. When someone builds influence on emotional transparency and pain, it's hard to separate the person from the performance, and even harder to accept when that same person is accused of causing harm. Diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, BPD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, Lexity often spoke candidly about her mental health on social media.
Hey, sweet pea, I have borderline personality disorder, and it's truly remarkable to me how little sympathy the symptoms of borderline personality disorder get. Like, rage is one of my symptoms, and I understand that it is entirely my fault when I express my anger in an unacceptable way, and I need to work harder to control my triggers, but part of that is putting myself in an environment where people are willing to work with me. I don't necessarily blame those people, but I do understand when people are bad for me, and they are bad for me sometimes. I'm not imagining my mental disorder, and I'm not imagining my triggers, and if you're not willing to work with my triggers, you can't be in my life. And that is a part of having sympathy for people who have mental disorders, specifically PTSD and BPD. That's what it means. And if you can't or aren't willing to deal with rage and someone's triggers, then don't be around someone who has BPD. Please, like, that's exactly what it means. And it is entirely our fault when we express our rage in an unhealthy way, but that's what the disorder means. I don't know what you expect from someone who says that they have BPD other than occasional extreme emotional episodes. That's what it means. I'm sorry if I hurt you. I'm sorry if I scared you. I have BPD. I'm sorry. I'm working on it.
She didn't just mention her diagnosis in passing. They were central to how she introduced herself to her audience and how she framed her experiences. For many of her followers, this openness was refreshing. It made her feel more relatable, more human, and in some ways more trustworthy.
So recently I've been posting a lot of very angry videos on here, and I'm sorry for that. Not really sorry, but I am thankful that you were here for me, that you heard me for once, because the reality is nobody around me, nobody like in my personal life that I knew personally listens to me.
She would get comments like, "Your authenticity is mutually beneficial. I'm able to give myself more compassion when I see others in myself and vice versa. You're human, you're allowed to have feelings. I'm glad you at least have people here willing to listen. I find that my CPTSD often influences me to push people away. It's what our brain's wired to do at a young age to protect ourselves. I see you." But while her openness was often seen as a strength, it also created complications. Lexity's mental health became a double-edged sword. On one hand, it helped people feel less alone. On the other hand, it gave her a way to rationalize behavior that at times crossed boundaries. She puts a whole lot of responsibility on other people instead of herself. She admits that she would react in a more acceptable way, but goes on to make it the responsibility of people around her to work with her triggers. She used her mental illness as some kind of shield. Lexity would eventually come to be known as being manipulative and abusive. On January 2nd, someone named Marcella posted a video where she talked about her experience with Lexity.
Today, specifically, I'm in a really scary state of mind. Really scary state of mind. I got involved with a person that is online. I followed this person because I thought they were very attractive and interesting looking, and their videos were like very soothing to watch. And they posted a video of themselves like in crisis mode, and they needed someone there for them, and disclosed that they were in Southern Oregon, which I hadn't known about. I didn't realize they were so close to me, like they could have been anywhere. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, like, I can be that hug that you're looking for, because I want to help people. And I've been there. Like, we've all been there. And I think we've all felt alone. And sometimes just having a person to say that they...
Here, she makes reference to this video posted by Lexity.
So sometimes when people ask you to hang out, it's because they need someone, and I have been alone for so goddamn long. Everybody just stares at me, and most people don't like me because I'm trans and punk, and nobody wants to be around me. I need someone in my life who will just spend 10 minutes to give me a hug. Ever! Goddamn! I am so... I can't do this. I can't do this.
Out of her desire to help people, Marcella reached out to Lexity to offer her that hug she so badly needed. She went as far as driving over 2 hours to get to where she would meet up with her. Now, one thing you should know is that, just like Lexity, Marcella was also someone dealing with her own mental health struggles.
Like, obviously therapy. I'm going to therapy, but it's quite a slow process, and I have a lot to work on. I have old trauma. I have extreme anxiety. And I have this attachment. I can't work on all of that at once, and I just want to be loved like everyone else. Like I being in love and being in a relationship has always been like my favorite part of life. And
Marcella was very much like Lexity in the sense that they both yearned for relationships. They both needed some form of emotional validation that could only be gotten from a romantic interaction. The only difference was that they had completely different ways of coping with emotional intensity. While Marcella sought steady emotional connection, Lexity's reactions were more impulsive and intense. This disconnect in their emotional coping mechanisms eventually became the foundation for the troubles that plagued their short-lived relationship.
I can tell myself all I want, that I will not tolerate being mistreated. But when it actually happens, there's a part of me that likes it. Like, I genuinely fantasize about being used. Which is so I don't know if it's because I feel like I deserve it, or if it's just really familiar to me. It's really attractive to me to be submissive like that. But like, there's ways to fulfill that without actual mistreatment, so.
Marcella had a submission fantasy and Lexity was a domineering person, so it's quite surprising that their relationship fell apart. On paper, it looked like a good fit. A submissive partner who craved direction and a dominant one who was willing to take the lead. But dominance alone isn't enough. Lexity's dominance came laced with controlling and abusive tendencies that quickly overshadowed any form of compatibility. I guess being abusive alongside being domineering isn't the spice Lexity thought it would be. Marcella talks about how the relationship started. On a live stream with another creator, she said that Lexity initiated the conversation that led to them talking about their interests in each other. It wasn't just a casual chat. Lexity knew how to make her presence felt and skillfully navigated the conversation to build intrigue. That initial connection grew rapidly, creating a path that would carry them straight into an emotionally volatile situation neither of them were ready for.
Shocked that I was looking at this person across the table, and we were just generally talking. I mean, it felt like a first date situation, you know, you ask like...
Just for like small talk, stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay.
At one point, she goes, "You're attracted to me, aren't you?" And I was like, "How could you tell?" And she said, "Because you're flirting with me." And so then that, you know, for me, that opened up like, okay, obviously we're both attracted to each other, so what is this gonna look like?
Lexity knew very well how to use her influence. She was also interested in Marcella, but she coyly made it look like Marcella was the only one who was interested. It would have been easy to just say, "I'm interested in you," but Lexity instead played a psychological game. She pointed out that Marcella was flirting with her, putting all the vulnerability on Marcella while conveniently appearing passive. This subtle manipulation made Marcella feel like she was the one making all the moves, while Lexity sat back and absorbed the admiration.
So I met this person in a public location. We had dinner. I was quite nervous because I've never met like a public figure, you know. Obviously, there's a power dynamic happening there. And I am pretty good at refraining from developing like parasocial relationships. Like I watch people online, but I don't really like allow myself to become attached to them.
Being careful about getting attached to online personalities is a smart thing to do. But for Marcella, she let her guard down this one time, and that's because of Lexity's status. Sure, she wasn't a big-time celebrity, but she was a known TikTok and Instagram influencer to Marcella. That level of recognition, combined with admiration, made it easy to overlook red flags. Just being in the presence of someone she had followed for so long created an emotional haze that blurred rational judgment. Marcella also had a checklist for the type of person she wanted to be in a relationship with. And according to her, Lexity fit perfectly into the mold. From emotional intelligence to creative flair and even physical attraction, Lexity ticked all the boxes. So when the relationship began, it didn't feel rushed or impulsive to Marcella. It felt like the universe had handed her a perfect partner. Unfortunately, surface-level compatibility didn't equate to long-term emotional stability.
To become attached to them. So I felt like it was fine because I was just seeing this person as a person that just needed help. And we hit it off pretty well. Like, we were obviously both into each other, which was exciting for me because I've been spending a lot of time yearning for a partner and like creating a picture in my head of what this partner would be like in a physical sense and also in an emotional sense and in intelligence wise. And she like hit the nail on the head with most of it. Which made me feel like it was meant to be.
Within days of being acquainted, Lexity and Marcella got into a relationship that did not last for more than 2 weeks. Lexity has expressed how one of her triggers associated with BPD was being pushed away. She always responded terribly to loved ones wanting to give her space, and her reactions could be terribly over the top. Instead of communicating boundaries or fears calmly, she would spiral, That pattern of immediate intensity and emotional escalation ultimately set fire to whatever potential their relationship may have had.
So my main experience in the dating world is that people will assume I'm their ex and then push me away constantly because of it. And I'm nothing like that person, but when they push me away enough, I eventually get upset, which I told them would happen because I have CPTSD and BPD. And one of my main triggers is people pushing me away because I have abandonment issues. God damn. And I tell them that. And that's not an excuse for me overreacting. It's still my responsibility to be clear with my boundaries and leave before I get to the point of overreacting, right? And I don't ever do that. I'm just too compassionate and I stay to the point where I blow up, even though I know it's going to happen and I warn them that it's going to happen. And when I do blow up, they blame me entirely and forget that I'm overreacting. Not reacting. I'm reacting to something, okay? I might have an unreasonable reaction that isn't okay to do, but it is a reaction to something that you did. You stepped all over my boundaries. I told you that if you kept pushing me away, I was going to react this way. I know what my triggers are, and you entirely ignored that because you assumed I was your abuse. And maybe the problem with your wasn't that you got overcommitted to someone. It's that you got overcommitted to a person who was going to treat you like get committed to someone or don't be with me. I want a life partner, not a romantic partner, not a fuck buddy. And if we're going to be friends, I want you to be clear about that. And if we're going to be nothing, please be clear about that. Like, if you want to be in a relationship with me, you need to want a life partner, someone who you are willing to share every single aspect.
While this sounds noble and all, this line of thinking is very problematic. For someone who knows that being pushed away is a major trigger for her, the most sensible thing to do when that happens would be to actually leave, not hang around and explode unchecked. Life partners don't just fall from the sky. Relationships have to be worked on, discussed, and nurtured. But Lexity clearly did not get the memo. She dove headfirst into a relationship days after meeting Marcella and exploded in rage when she didn't get the emotional validation she demanded.
Skewed. But it was so loud and went on for so long that at one point my ears were ringing. And of course, as I mentioned before, I was dissociating, so there was a lot of stuff that was said that I don't even remember. What I do remember was, as I said before, I would take accountability and say, you know what, I should have consoled you. I'm sorry, I understand why you're upset. Next time I'm going to do better. She would calm down. She would say, I'm so sorry for blowing up on you. You're right, you did nothing wrong. And then she would circle back around and she would say, you know what, you. And then she'd go off and the same ramblings over and over again. It was just the same circle.
Lexity's uncontrolled emotions made her use Marcella verbally because she did not get the response that she wanted from her. Instead of listening and understanding, she took Marcella's honesty as rejection. And that rejection, even though gently expressed, was enough to trigger Lexity into a spiral. The emotional explosion that followed wasn't just a tantrum, it was a traumatic verbal assault that left Marcella deeply shaken.
So to me it was like being screamed at and scared, and then, oh, she's calming down, okay, everything's gonna be okay. And then screamed at again, and okay, everything's gonna be fine, I'm safe. And then screamed at again. I don't know how many times that happened. It was at least 3 or 4. At one point she called me a whore. I don't know why. At one point she made the motion of like spitting in my direction.
Lexity hurled a tsunami of bad words at Marcella, so much that she couldn't remember some of the things that were said to her. It must have been a really scary experience for her. The sheer volume and intensity of the yelling left her in a state of emotional disassociation. As if verbally wasn't enough, Lexity took it a bit further into berating her, talking to her like she was a child, as if her pain wasn't valid. It was an emotional breakdown disguised as a power play.
And then at another point, I was cowering right here on the floor. Okay, I was in like a fetal position, and I told her, please stop screaming at me. I really need you to stop screaming at me right now. And she said, she switched up, and I'm sure you've seen this in her lives, she switched from yelling to a baby voice, and she said, if I talk to you like this, are you gonna understand me? Do I need to talk to you like a baby? Is it okay if I talk to you like this? Please look me in my eyes and tell me that.
This was Marcella's third video discussing the issues she had with Lexity. Unlike the first one, where she was almost trying not to be too expository about the abuse she faced, she decided to be more open. and that's because Lexity publicly downplayed the severity of what she had done. This shift in Marcella's tone wasn't just a storytelling evolution, it was a reaction to gaslighting and an attempt to reclaim her narrative.
Let me be clear. At this point, Marcella is like literally just trying to get attention from my fame. Okay? At this point, that is all that's going on. Okay? Do not go over there because that's what's going on. You know? Like it's fine that she wants to talk about stuff, but like a bunch of people coming over here and being like, "Oh, Marcella. Go over there or not." Okay? I'm not going to spend my entire life apologizing for something that I've already apologized for Okay.
Mind you, Marcella was respectful enough to ask for Lexity's permission before posting about the things that happened in the relationship, and she gave Marcella the go-ahead. It's important to emphasize that Marcella didn't set out to cancel or shame Lexity. She only spoke up after Lexity minimized her pain, and even then she sought permission, showing that her intention was never to smear but to be heard. That level of courtesy, despite what she had endured, speaks volumes about her character. Her response clearly shows that she's aware of the fact that she's an abusive person. It's really not something that she would even claim ignorance of. She tells Marcella, "You are always welcome to tell anyone and everyone about any of my behavior, especially the abusive stuff. I want you to be able to get support when I mess up. That's really cool and I hope it goes well."
That's narcissism. She did trigger me. I warned her about my triggers. Yeah, it's my fault that I didn't leave sooner, and I and I blame myself, and it's not helpful for me to blame her, but it's not helpful for her to blame me. She should work on herself. Does she have control over what I do? And you know what? I literally accepted all of that before she even said. I was like, I should not be angry, and I'm working on that. Okay, I'm gonna leave. What happened? Marcella's being an attention, it really wants attention from me at this point. You know? She really wants to leech off my fan base. It's really what's going on. Genuinely? Yeah.
Lexity talks about Marcella's retelling of the events of their relationship as if she was farming attention off the internet. This is incredibly ironic, coming from someone whose online identity is built on vulnerability and raw self-expression. Her entire persona revolves around sharing intensely personal stories in front of an audience, often in live streams or TikToks, to inspire others or draw sympathy. For someone who encourages openness and destigmatizes mental health, accusing Marcella of attention-seeking just for speaking truth is incredibly hypocritical, and paints Lexity in an even more manipulative light. Marcella's only crime was deciding to take things slow, a completely rational and healthy choice in any budding relationship. Her intention was never to hurt Lexity, but to ensure their emotional compatibility before diving in head first. Unfortunately, Lexi interpreted that need for space as rejection. For someone with abandonment issues, this felt like a personal attack. But instead of communicating or walking away, she spiraled into a meltdown. It's even more troubling when you realize all of this unfolded within just 4 days of them meeting.
She was very triggered by my attachment style. I wanted time. I wanted to get to know her. I just kind of wanted to exist with each other. Let's, go out and do fun things. Let's watch movies together. Let's hang out. Let's not become so, crazy attached right from the beginning. Let's build this slowly so that I don't crash and burn. And so you don't crash and burn. But that was very triggering to them, just because of past relationships they've had. So my past relationships and their past relationships were very conflicting, and we were very triggering to each other. And so it sort of blew up in my face in a very, very scary way. I wasn't even thinking about them in that moment. They said they were scared to lose me, and based on knowing about their past, I should have consoled them and said, "You're not going to lose me." But I did not do that. I just answered their question. I told them that my fear was that we became anxiously attached to each other. And that was the absolute wrong thing to say and do. It triggered something extremely scary in this person. And they were drinking alcohol, which frightened me when I learned that they would be drinking that night, because they had warned me that they were an alcoholic. So I was already a little bit worried, and they blew up. And it was very, very reminiscent of ways that I've been blown up on before.
No, I'm not I'm sorry about Marcella. You called it abusive yourself? Okay, it's abusive behavior, but that doesn't make me an abusive person. Like I made a mistake. Yeah, sure. Okay. That doesn't make me an abuser. Yeah. Like an abuser is someone who has a pattern of abuse that they repeat, not makes a mistake once and does something that was abusive. Like, there's a difference. And I guess I should have phrased that earlier before, but it was a mistake and it was a bad thing to do, but I'm not an abusive person. And I'm not building abusive relationships, you know? I don't know, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna block anyone who says that. Okay, seriously, we're gonna restart.
She constantly lives in denial when it comes to admitting that she's an abusive person. This denial is not uncommon among abusers, but in Lexity's case, it's made worse by her large platform and public visibility. She weaponizes her struggles to justify her emotional outbursts, but accountability never seems to follow. She deflects, reframes, and spins narratives that always make her the misunderstood one, never the wrongdoer. The result is a cycle where others are forced to carry the blame while she reaps sympathy from her audience. Unfortunately, Lexity's spree of abuse did not end with Marcella. The next victim was someone named Marcy, whose story paints an equally disturbing picture.
Hi, I'm Marcy. I'm here to talk about the situation that I encountered with Anastasia/Lexity today. I am going to just jump right into it. Let me make sure my earbud is in.
Marcy said she and Lexity chatted for a few months before finally meeting up in person after several failed attempts. The moment they did, Lexity's first question wasn't about how she was or how the journey was. Instead, she asked if Marcy was in an open relationship. That question, very awkward, immediately set the tone for a strange and uncomfortable evening. For someone claiming to be emotionally intelligent, this was a poor start.
So, 2 days ago, we planned the hangout. I get picked up by her in her van, and the first thing I'm asked is, are you in an open relationship? To which I say, no, I am not. I am in a monogamous relationship. We can totally talk about it, we're meeting each other for the first time. So, we'll get there. You'll learn who I am. I'll learn who you are.
First impressions matter, and Lexity was already going down the wrong path. According to Marcy, things escalated quickly. Lexity started pushing Marcy to consider leaving her current partner, repeatedly telling her that she would be better off with her. This wasn't just a friend offering support, it was coercion masked as concern. From the very beginning, Lexity seems to view Marcy less as a person and more as a prize to be claimed.
From the get-go, it seems like Anastasia is pressuring me to want her more than I want my current partner. And I will say, I do go to my friends for relationship advice, support, whatever that may entail. But what I believe in is that it is not okay to try and force somebody out of their relationship they're currently in and try and persuade them that they deserve better, because that's very harmful, especially if the the person you like, the friend you're trying to convince to leave the relationship can't or doesn't want to because they love that person, you know, which is valid. We all have our own kind of timelines with how we heal and how we figure our situations out. It's not up to somebody to tell you what you need to do about a situation and then kind of make you feel bad if you don't follow their decision. So Anastasia was pressuring me to, you know, understand that I deserved better and I needed to leave my relationship, and somebody like her could treat me so much better, and that, you know, I'm obviously a submissive woman that needs a dominant mommy to take care of her, which I do not. I'm not asking for that.
Lexity consistently forces her dominant mommy persona on the people she dates, whether or not they consent to it. For her, it seems to be more than a kink. It's a deeply rooted fantasy connected to her upbringing. She often explains it as an attempt to recreate the nurturing environment she never received as a child. But instead of seeking therapy to address this unmet need, she tries to relive it through her partners, using emotional control and dominance as substitutes for healing.
So I'm a mommy dom, and that's not just a sex thing. It's a thing that I am in romantic relationships outside of the bedroom. I want to cook for you. I want to run you a bath. I want to take care of you. I want to hold you and tell you that you're safe and listen to your emotions and do the things that I wish my mother had done for me when I was a child. And yes, it does come from trauma, and that's okay, right? Everything comes from trauma. Trauma shapes us, and just because you can say, oh, you have mommy issues, yes, I do, and I handle them very well. I give consenting adults a comforting, welcoming space where they can be emotionally vulnerable and feel taken care of, so I can experience vicariously the childhood I never got. What's bad about that? And if you think being a mommy dom is just a sex thing, you know nothing about BDSM culture. It is so much more than just a sex thing. It is a sex thing.
Marcy talks about how Lexity pushed this mommy dynamic despite her clear lack of interest in it. It was another example of Lexity bulldozing boundaries to satisfy her emotional needs, never truly seeing or respecting her partner's discomfort.
But unfortunately, because I was in shock, I didn't know how to process the fact that my boundaries were being actively broken, that I continued to be nice and sweet and kind of shy, to where I believe she took that on her own to be like, oh, this person like is shy because she's being activated into her submissive mode because I need to be her dommy mommy. And that's not the case. I was very insecure. I was nervous. I didn't know how to tell this person that I felt like they kept breaking my boundaries, because I'm still working on that. I'm still actively healing. So I people pleased Anastasia, and
Marcy talks about how Lexity pushed this mommy dynamic despite her clear lack of interest in it. It was another example of Lexity bulldozing boundaries to satisfy her emotional needs, never truly seeing or respecting her partner's discomfort. In Marcy's case, Lexity wasn't verbally explosive like she was with Marcella. Instead, her abuse took a more physical form.
So after dinner, we're walking to the park. And I love platonic affection. I love hugging, holding hands, even like consensual platonic kisses. I hugged Anastasia, and it was nice. It was a really good hug. But from like the hug on, I felt like she was really pressuring me to be romantic or with her. She gave me her nice jacket. It was really warm. We went on the bench in front of this pond to talk and just sit and digest. And Anastasia was trying to kiss me. I was trying to pull away and just not give in to that. And then next thing I know, Anastasia is my breast. And she does this twice. And I froze because I didn't know what to do.
Lexity completely ignored Marcy's boundaries, despite being told that Marcy was already in a committed relationship. Even after Marcy reiterated her loyalty to her partner, Lexity kept pushing. She didn't stop when they were alone or even when she was dropping Marcy off. Instead, she guilt-tripped her by saying things like, "I can't believe you're going back to him instead of me," turning what should have been a clear goodbye into a manipulative moment.
I get back to where I'm getting dropped off, and Anastasia is upset that I'm going back to my boyfriend's house and not staying with her, and she tells me, basically, like, "I just can't believe you're going with him and not with me." And I was like, and I started crying in front of her, and I was like, "Hey, dude, I just needed a friend tonight. I'm going through my own things as well, and I'm very sorry if I put any of those onto you that made you feel like I need that much saving, because I don't. But I appreciate you, and I understand where you're coming from."
Two things became painfully clear at this point. The first is that Lexity has developed a severe superhero complex. She seems to think that every vulnerable person she meets must be saved by her, even if they never asked for it. The second is her obsession with romantic relationships. Lexity has made the pursuit of a partner the central purpose of her life, chasing it so recklessly that she overlooks whether it's healthy or wanted.
Hey, sweet pea. So sometimes when I tell people I need a romantic relationship in order to feel fulfilled, they go, "Oh my gosh, you shouldn't need a romantic relationship. You should just want that. You should work on yourself until you don't need people anymore." But the reality is, a romantic relationship is like the main thing I want in life. You know, I want to find someone who's willing to spend their life with me so I can share my entire life with them, and they can share their entire life with me. That's my main goal in life. So if I don't find the main thing I'm looking for, I'm not exactly going to feel fulfilled in life, am I? You know? Does that make sense? And no, I'm not jumping into any old relationship just because I'm afraid to be alone. I'm very self-reliant, and I've been alone for quite a while, despite the fact that a lot of people are very interested in me. I'm still alone because I'm not just jumping into any relationship. That doesn't change the fact that I will never feel fulfilled unless I get the main thing I'm looking for, which happens to be a committed, loving, healthy, romantic relationship. And it's weird that you keep projecting that that's an unhealthy thing for me to want.
So for Lexity, any fan or follower who reached out during a mental health breakdown became an opportunity, not to help them, but to insert herself into their lives in a way that satisfied her emotional cravings. That's why she pushed Marcy to leave her relationship. In her mind, that was her chance to finally find the love she believed she deserved. But instead of mutual care, it became a disturbing pattern of coercion. She's in deep denial about her behavior. On her platform, she still posts videos blaming her exes for everything, claiming they're making up stories or never appreciating how much she tried to help them. These are guilt-tripping tactics used to avoid responsibility. Her content now revolves around painting herself as the misunderstood one, which is rich considering how much harm she's caused.
Hey, sweet pea. So one of the hardest parts of letting go of my ex is that I know that they're gonna build up this story in their head about how terrible of a person I am and how I was the cause of all the problems in our relationship. And I don't know, when I spent so much time and effort trying to help them grow, and I really do think that their main problem is that they never examine how they're the cause of the problems in their life. You know, they always put it on something or someone else instead of examining what they did to cause their problems. But now they're going to turn around and turn me into the bad guy, you know, shirk responsibility once again, and that really hurts because, like, as much as it hurts to lose them and have them not support me, it hurts even more to feel like a failure again, especially when I feel like I've spent my entire life trying to help the people around me grow and accept how they've been part of the damage around them. Like, they've been part of the problem, even the majority of the problem some of the time, or maybe even a lot of the time. I don't know. I'm not one to judge that necessarily. I know I could be better. I could always be better. But I really just don't like it when people demonize me to make themselves sit in this little stasis bubble where they don't have to grow at all and examine what they did to cause the problems in their life. It makes me so sad. It does.
As much as Lexity continues to insist that she isn't, the sheer number of credible allegations and first-hand accounts make it hard to see her as innocent. This pattern has gone far beyond misunderstandings. Another deeply disturbing case is her interaction with Haley.
My name is Haley. This is my experience with Anastasia Alexandria Athena Lennon, also known as Lexity, Anya Athena on Instagram, I believe now.
Haley, a recovering alcoholic, had what can only be described as a traumatic experience with Lexity. In the video where she tells her story, Haley looks shaken. Her voice quivers and her face carries visible pain, even though the events are in the past. Lexity was supposed to be a comforting friend. Instead, she became the source of significant trauma that Haley is still trying to process. According to Haley, while she was blackout drunk, Lexity initiated physical contact without consent. When Haley regained partial awareness, Lexity continued to make advances. This wasn't just poor judgment, it was a complete disregard for consent and a clear example of predatory behavior. Haley was too intoxicated to provide informed consent, and that makes Lexity's actions even more serious.
It made me really nervous. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I did start drinking immediately when she told me that. It's my fault, not her fault that I started drinking. So by the time she got here, I was already really drunk. And I had missed her call when she got here about twice. And I could tell she was getting upset. She sent me a bunch of messages. She's like, how am I supposed to get in? If you're not going to let me in, how am I supposed to see you? Are you going to let me in, or am I leaving? Am I leaving town? And I'm like, no, like, I'm like, come on, like, I'm going to try to help you find the place. I'm sorry. So she found the place. We go inside. At this point, I am pretty much blacked out entirely. That's where like the night like ends for me, unfortunately, and picks up again a little bit later at a very scary, frightening, confusing time to wake up to what I'm about to talk about. Forward, I wake up on the couch and Anastasia has her head on my lap, and she's like sniffing my crotch, and I'm like, what is happening? Because the last thing I remember was her like getting here, and I was just showing her like this stuff on my makeup desk.
Haley shares the screenshot of a conversation she had with Lexity where she admitted to touching her improperly. Hey, I'm sorry I did anything. I honestly didn't think you were that drunk when stuff started. I was very unclear on what boundaries there were, let alone if I was crossing any. No matter how drunk a person is, whether they're just tipsy or completely incapacitated by alcohol, they cannot give informed consent. That's the standard view in both legal and ethical contexts, and it's supported by research and public health consensus. When a person is intoxicated, their ability to assess risk, express clear decisions, and set personal boundaries is significantly impaired. But Lexity seems to reject this reality. She has openly stated that she believes drunk people can, in fact, give consent to intimate relations, an opinion that is not only dangerous, but wildly irresponsible given her influence.
Hey, sweet pea, so you're not gonna like this take, but drunk people can absolutely consent to sex. I was an alcoholic for a long time. I was drunk every single day for like 3 years. I had a lot of sex during that time, and it wasn't all coercive. I knew what I was doing, and it is not up to other people to determine how drunk I am when they also might be intoxicated, and when I might be concealing how intoxicated I am. Yeah? You need to be very, very drunk for you to not be able to consent. Like, can't really walk or talk straight, right? Like, the kind of drunk where it is impossible for you to conceal how drunk you are. And at that point, yeah, you can't really consent to sex. But there is a large space in between sober and blackout drunk where you are very able to consent and even likely to try to consent just because alcohol makes people horny. Yeah, alcoholics can absolutely consent to sex, and they regularly do.
There's a massive logical disconnect in Lexity's argument. She claims no one can judge how drunk she is during her own moments of intoxication, insisting she knows her limits and agency. Yet when the roles are reversed and someone else, like Haley, is the one who's drunk, Lexity suddenly feels entitled to judge their level of sobriety. She claims she didn't think Haley was that drunk, even though Haley was blackout drunk and unable to remember major parts of the night. That's not just inconsistent, it's predatory behavior dressed up as ignorance. Lexity was fully aware that Haley had a girlfriend. In fact, she didn't just ignore this boundary, she outright suggested that all three of them get intimate, as if people's relationships and consent were negotiable based on her desires. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment either. It's part of a repeated pattern where she disregards people's personal relationships while constantly complaining that her own boundaries are being violated. That kind of hypocrisy is not only manipulative, but deeply manipulative and controlling. After things spiraled and Haley made the choice to block Lexity, Lexity's reaction wasn't remorse, it was blackmail. She tried to manipulate Haley into posting a public video to clear her name, asking her to deny the assault allegations and discredit every other person who had come forward. The implied threat was that their friendship would end if Haley refused. That's not just unethical, it's emotional extortion. It shows how far Lexity's willing to go to erase consequences and rewrite the narrative.
He tried to blackmail me and say that we're no longer going to be friends at all unless you make a video discrediting all the victims and yourself. Like, tell them that you sexually harassed me and that I never sexually harassed anyone at all, or abused anyone or anything like that, even though there's proof of it.
Lexity's solution to salvaging her reputation wasn't self-reflection or taking accountability, it was to weaponize one of her victims. She saw Haley, someone she had already harmed, as a tool to attack others and try to dismantle the multiple allegations piling up against her. Instead of accepting fault or acknowledging a pattern of abusive behavior, she attempted to use Haley to invalidate the voices of other survivors. This speaks volumes about her mindset, and it's why many believe she is far more dangerous than she presents herself to be. Lexi is no superhero, and it's become very obvious from recent unfoldings. If anything, she needs to seek help, and do it as fast as possible. Unfortunately, she has a good social media presence, and can be easily carried away by the influence she currently wields. One thing is certain, however, and that's that if she continues like this, she'll leave a whole lot of trauma in her trail, and at the end of the day, she would end up doing so much harm that her soothing videos won't be able to make up for her.